Let me begin by sharing my screen and just a quick review over the different components of our strategic plan. Okay. So over the last year, we, through various community-wide meetings within our district, we were able to write a strategic plan with the assistance of the Vermont School Boards Association. And in that process, we reviewed our former mission and vision and came up with several new ones. And so our new vision is that we are an innovative and thriving community focused on personal, or we're an innovative and thriving community focused on personal and collective growth and belonging for all. You'll hear the term growth and belonging throughout our strategic plan, as well as kind of in the language that we're using on a daily basis, because we believe that that is what our goals are for our students every day, but also not just for our students, also for our staff, because our goal is to be a learning community, and so that way we can become the best possible servants for our students and for our respective towns. So our mission derived from that vision is to make sure that we are educating and empowering all students with the knowledge, understanding, skills, and curiosity to contribute to and flourish in a complex world. The next few slides, I will just kind of share with you, because from here we get down to our priorities. We have 4 priorities. Our number 1 priority is student belonging and learning. Our second priority is connections, and this is a different way of saying communications, but it's not just communications. It's also trying to find a way for us to make sure that we are sharing information with the community, but also being open to receiving communications from the community, so that way we
Babe,
have
I
the
forgot
ability.
that there was a school board meeting right now, so I'm just gonna listen in.
So this is it's one of our ways to make sure that we are continuing to expand our communications and connections with the community. Priority 3 is employee success. So this is expanding on the idea that not only are we trying to ensure that we are hiring employees and retaining employees, but we also want to make sure that we're growing our employees and making sure that they belong, making sure that we compensate them in a proper competitive manner, but also to make sure that if our employees want to seek advancement through leadership within our schools, that we are able to do that. One of the pieces that has come out in both our equity audit and also in our strategic planning work is that our community and our district really want to make sure that we have a growing, diverse staff, so that way our students are able to see themselves in our employees. So that's a major part of this particular priority. And then finally, our priority 4 is operations. So this is our way of making sure that we don't lose track of the things that take place outside of the classroom. We have to make sure that our facilities are up to date. We have to make sure that our buses are running on time and efficiently. We have to make sure that we're providing the best possible meals for our students while they're in our care. But by the same token, we want to make sure that we're doing this efficiently, transparently, and also in a way that our community has the ability to provide us feedback during our budget process. Because our goal is to be able to fund our schools equitably, so that way the schools have what they need in order to be successful. And so, and that gets us to our next presentation. And I guess I'll kick it off, Gary, by saying that we're at a point, a nexus or an intersection, if you will, of I guess change for the district, and that's why we are trying to find different ways to communicate that the potential change with our community, with our schools, with our board. And Gary will get into the different components of it. What we know for sure is that, in fiscal year 25, which is next year, there's not going to be a great deal of change. It'll be mostly business as usual, but we have to make sure that we're keeping the community informed of the potential for things to change beyond next year. And so with that, Gary, if you'd like to, I'll stop sharing my screen. Do you have the ability to share your screen?
I do.
Okay.
All right. Thank you, Rene, and welcome to people who are attending tonight. I appreciate you being here. What I'd like to talk about maybe for the next 10 or 15 minutes is budgeting for fiscal year 25 and really beyond, because there are some changes coming like Rene described, that will impact and inform our decision making as we move forward from FY25 all the way up to FY30. So as we look ahead to budgeting for fiscal year 25 and beyond, there's some important things that we need to consider. So three main things are kind of converging for us. One in the center is Act 127. That is a legislative initiative that was taken up by the Vermont legislature, and it's called the Equitable School Funding Law. Second is the discontinuation of our federal relief funds, the COVID pandemic funding that we have been receiving since late 2020. And then finally, what we need to do to maintain, improve, and continue to operate quality facilities. And this is just kind of a recap of those three things, kind of in the order that we'll discuss them tonight. Act 127, the federal relief funding, and facilities. So Act 127. As I said, Act 127 is called the Equitable Funding for Schools Law. It updates and adds new pupil weights beginning in the next fiscal year, so the budget that we're preparing right now, with the intent of providing more resources to students who need them where they are. It redistributes money from the education fund according to the newly enacted student weights for different criteria. Some districts across Vermont will be advantaged and they will receive a larger portion of the education fund, and some districts will be disadvantaged, and CVSD falls into that disadvantaged category. All that means that if we want to maintain the same level of spending per pupil to deliver our educational program, we are going to have to be required to have a higher tax rate to maintain that level of spending. Kind of the good news is that they're in the law, there is a cap on the tax rate for the first 5 years. So from FY25 through FY29, the tax rate in the Champlain Valley School District can't increase more than 5%, in any given year. So there is one requirement with that. We cannot raise our per pupil spending by 10% or more to get that 5% fail safe or cap on our tax rates. I don't foresee us increasing more than 10% per pupil spending in any one year. I don't think that's happened in the past, and I can't see a situation where it would. So our approach, the leadership in both the finance and our educational leadership have come up with some approaches to mitigate some of the impacts of less money from the education fund as we move forward through the enacting of this law over the next 5 years. So one of the things that we are going to do is we are going to do our best to constrain spending. One of the requirements that's coming for this budget year is that all new staffing and expense requests need to come with an offsetting reduction. So that means that if we want to enact a new program, buy new software, do those kind of things, we are requiring an effort to find offsetting reductions to not increase the overall budget. We're going to use our strategic plan and all of our data sources to identify resources that might not align with the new strategic plan and the goals that are outlined there. Or we're going to look for programs, platforms, things that we're spending money on that have become inefficient. We'll also consider one-time spending opportunities that will reduce spending once the cap is gone in FY30. So to explain that a little bit, if we can make strategic investments over the next 5 years while our tax rate is capped, we can reduce the need for taking on those expenses in the years after the cap is gone from, say, FY30 through FY34 or 35. And finally, the approach that we need to take is we want to be very transparent. We want to begin to educate the community, which we're doing tonight for the first time, on Act 127's potential eventual impact on district finances. So the second leg is the elimination, the discontinuation of the federal relief funds. So since late 2020, we know that staff supports have grown to meet the increased student need. A lot of those were brought on and at least exacerbated by the pandemic. And we have been contending with the availability of providing the supports, especially from a mental health services standpoint, since the pandemic began. This year, FY24, we have about $1.4 million in federal support funding in our current budget. That funding expires really at the end of this school year, September 30th, 2024. So we can support some summer programming at the conclusion of the school year, but it ends at the end of September 2024. What we invested in CVSD, some of the primary things that we invested in were additional school counselors and social workers, educational interventionists, assessment systems to gather better data on where we were. iReady is one of those examples, and summer programming to provide additional supports to address education loss in our summers. So the approach that we are going to take, we have some positions that are funded through federal relief funds. Act 127 and the constraints that is going to place on us in the future, it won't allow us to easily absorb the positions into our general fund budget. So the district leadership will review and prioritize the positions using data, using the most effective measures against the existing general fund funding, the spending that we already have. We'll also look at our other spending, outside contracts, assessment tools, software, those kind of things. And we'll also need to look at eliminating those that aren't high payoff items, or we'll have to offset them if we want to keep them with other reductions. And finally, the third leg in all this is our facility needs. So we have well-maintained schools. There's no question about that. We do have some enrollment pressures. All of our schools are in need of investments due to projected overcrowding and simply the age of our facilities. A lot of our facilities were built in the 50s, 60s. They are aging. We definitely need to do maintenance on those facilities, and we also have some space constraints due to things like additional need for one-on-one space, for support space, to deliver the education in the design that it is now. Finally, kind of the timing of bigger facilities projects that we envision doing will coincide pretty directly with the full implementation in 2030 of Act 127. So we know that we have some facilities challenges ahead that we need to address. Kind of the approach that we'll take is later this year, we'll create a facilities committee to look at the needs. We've had some recent assessments done where now we have recent assessments for all of our K-8 facilities. And we'll take a look at the identified needs with a committee and develop a capital plan from there that best addresses those needs. We'll also advocate with the legislature and the School Construction Aid Task Force to really encourage them to keep some momentum going in the reinstitution of school construction aid, which ended, I think it was 2006 or 2007 in Vermont. We know some neighboring states, Rhode Island and Massachusetts, have a statewide school construction funding mechanism that's managed at the state level, and they've been extremely successful in modernizing and updating facilities through the use of those programs. So the next steps, where we're going from here, we'll begin to plan for the general fund offset or the elimination of some of our federal relief funded programs. Anything added to new budgets, we will look for offsetting reductions. We'll review all of our current spending to identify, possible efficiencies or inefficiencies that would suggest the need for program elimination. We'll be prepared to explain Act 127 to our staff, which we are doing right now. We've done a bunch of those presentations this month. We have been explaining it with this presentation right here. And one of the most important points is that we do have 5 years to take the steps to mitigate impact on the students, on our staff, and on our community members who fund our education programs. Finally, we have to be open to change. And this situation, Act 127, some reduction in potential funding will require some really difficult decisions. And that's why we want to get the community involved early. We want to be transparent. We want to get input from our staff and the community as we plan for the next 5 years. This is kind of the 1-year road ahead. We informed our educational leadership team and briefed them on this same presentation. We also reviewed it with our board and our Finance and Facilities Committee. We're informing faculty and staff now, and we're beginning communications with our larger community through venues like this and the one that's coming up on October 25th. We'll engage all audiences and be transparent in our budget process to get some clear understanding built and to get some valuable input. And finally, we will make the hard decisions to mitigate the potential impact on all of the interested parties. So that's a quick presentation of where we are, and we are certainly open to questions.
Hi, it's Hans Bueller. Just a quick question on the increases. Did you say there's a 5% cap on increase, which would that trickle through to property tax increases too? Like just
that
thinking of the next 5 years of what to expect for tax increases.
Nope. The Act 127, the statute actually includes a maximum of a 5% increase in the tax rate, the base tax rate, for the next 5 years. So that is actually the base property tax rate that can't increase more than 5%.
Okay, thanks.
Margaret, go ahead.
So I'd have a question on how development works into this, because, so I live in Heinsberg.
Mhm.
There's already over 350 houses approved for Heinsberg. I'd
Yep.
like to know two things. One, what's the capacity of Heinsberg Community School to absorb the kids associated with 350 to 400 new houses? And the second question is how the school board or the school district interacts with the development review board so
Yeah.
that there are school places for the houses that are being built.
Okay, so it's kind of multifaceted. So of the developments, we are a part of the Act 250 approval process. So we have done the capacity evaluation, and we are looking with the proposed numbers of students that have come through on those permitting requests. We can absorb them through about 2028 is what we're estimating right now. They aren't so many that they will require additional classrooms at this point. And then your second part of your question, I do meet quarterly with the Heinsberg DRB representative in the town office, and the name escapes me right now. I apologize. But we do have kind of a quarterly meeting to kind of discuss the future and to look at timing and to review those estimates.
When you say there are places through 2028, does that mean district-wide or does that mean
That's Heinsberg.
community-based?
That's Heinsberg
That's-
that we're looking
So
at.
that doesn't mean sending our kindergartners off to Charlotte.
It does not at this point.
Okay, because that's been bandied about in several town meetings. And it doesn't seem like a good long-term plan because there are other communities that are also expanding.
Yeah, I don't think we have been part as a district of those discussions about sending Heinsberg kids to Charlotte. Now there is some capacity at Charlotte. I don't know about the viability of long term. However, like it's not in the current plan.
But there is some long-term planning. I mean, we can't build schools overnight, so.
You are correct.
Yeah, and that's the facilities committee that we will be launching around town meeting day, right, Gary?
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
Hans.
I just wanted to say thank you, Rene and Gary, for bringing this up. This looks like a great process. The communication is wonderful. I don't envy the position you're in, and truly, there are a lot of headwinds. So thank you for trying to get ahead of it. That's all I wanted to say. Thank you for that. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for the comment.
Thank you, Hans. But does anybody have any kind of follow-up questions or any final questions for the budget? And it can even be about the budget process upcoming, because we've got, we're getting into decision packet time. We're getting into just getting ready to, we have a budget meeting on October 25th where we share with the community what the process is going to be. Kara, you have a question?
Yes, I didn't seem to find my hand raising
Okay.
mode, but I noticed on the path, kind of the tough decisions was towards the end of it. but with the ESSER funded positions ending, how quickly will we have the decision made about which positions maybe are sticking around because of offset funding and which ones aren't? The difficult decisions are being made late in the year. That seems too late in terms of those faculty members being able to make decisions about, their next move.
Yeah, I can address that, Renee, if you'd like. So
Sure.
we are working through that right now. Sarah Crum, the director of instruction and curriculum, like she has been the primary driver of the support, educational support positions that were funded through ESSER, and we have been meeting regularly. We're having those discussions. I think the decisions will be made, the end of November, first week in December, because they're part of this next budget. I will say that we have already discussed it with the Finance and Facilities Committee, and they have discussed it with the board. That there is no expectation that every one of those federally funded positions will go away, because some of those supports are still critically necessary to students. So we are working through that process, and we did commit to bringing a proposal that looked at both offsets to keep some positions and for the board to kind of make an exception to the have to have an offset for additional spending for some of those critical support positions. So I think we will know the end of November, early first week of December, what we're going to propose to keep. And that's one of the things that helps with the 5% cap tax rate, is that we don't have to do it all in a year. We have 5 years to work through this.
Thank you, Karen, for your question. Definitely a question on many people's minds. Well, Gary, thank you so much for your presentation. And I'd like to thank everybody for coming out tonight. We will have another one of these strategic plan town hall meetings in a couple months. There is going to be a DEI town hall meeting next month, and we'll advertise that one because that will be in person. And I don't think it'll be on a Wednesday. I think it's going to end up being on a Friday, which will be really fun. So keep your eyes out open for that. And then don't forget to join us at the CVSD Budget Forum on October 25th. I think it's at CVU or virtual, Gary?
You've got me. I think it's in person at CVU.
Okay. All right. Yeah. If we're able to produce a hybrid version of it, we'll be sure to advertise it as such. So again, thank you so much for coming out tonight. And if you have any questions, do not hesitate to email Gary or myself. Thanks again. Good night.